Hey guys, I wanted to show you something really cool, and it's not my face, but it's a way of doing something similar to what I've been doing with the extracting the building from a single image exercise. So now we're going to do it with something cool. If you've ever heard of Midjourney, it's an AI image generation program. Don't throw tomatoes if you're not into it, just turn the video off. But it's just a really cool way to use something that, might not be your thing, but could actually do something for you even if you're not into it. So a lot of the times I'll work on pictures like, say, this one right here that I used in the last video that I am currently editing and uploading. And it was just a flat storefront image. And, I've been asked by people, where do you get these? And sometimes they're really hard to find exactly what you need. So it can take forever. And it might be kind of cool if we had a different way of getting these images. So what about going to an AI image generating source here, i.e. Midjourney. All you have to do is sign up for it and then you're in. There are plenty of tutorials on how to do that. And we come here and we make some images, say, like these. And these are some of the ones I generated. What it does is it generates 4 small ones first, and then you can say which ones you want it to up-res to have the high resolution finished version of. So it does a pretty good job. Basically what I did here was a straight-on view of an old shop storefront building. This V4 is just making sure it uses the V4 version 4 of the model that it's got at the moment. So I'm just going to regenerate. It basically works the same way. Matter of fact, let me just copy this prompt. The V4 goes in automatic for me because I have my settings like that. So I'm just going to go here, press the plus button down here at the bottom of the screen. Go to Use Apps, go to Imagine, and then it sets up a prompt. This is where you type in whatever you want. I'm just going to paste in what we already had, straight on front view of an old shop storefront building, and press enter. And now it's going to load that in and let the AI start doing its thing. It'll take a few minutes. And while we're waiting for it, we will come over here and look at some of the stuff I've already generated for this. Here's some 4 beginning sets of those buildings. And here's 4 more that I did right after that. This one's really great, but I would have to go into Photoshop and remove these trees or mirror this side of the building over to this side to get rid of those. And here's the last ones you saw, but this is the one that's generating right now. As you can see, we're trying to jump to that one right here. And right now it's at 62%. It's doing a pretty good job. And now it turns into an old man. Just kidding. It finished and it jumped it down to the bottom here. So here are our 4 images that it's generated for us. And we're going to pick one of these to up-res. It might be kind of cool to do this old-timey one. It's going to be a little easier only because we don't have rounded top windows and a bunch of stuff. But this will give us a good example of what can be done. So we'll go ahead and use that one, I suppose. And to do that, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. You have here 1, 2, 3, 4, or you can do versions of them right here. But we're going to up-res number 4. So we click on that button and wait for it. It's going to turn blue, and then down below somewhere, it's going to start the process of up-resing that, which will take some time. While we're waiting, there's a picture here of somebody made a Britney Spears with a waffle for a head. It didn't actually make her head a waffle, apparently, but it shows her screaming, holding a spiky waffle like a ninja star. There's a waffle on her head. So you can see it can do great stuff. Sometimes it messes it up, and that's usually based on what you put in. So if your prompt is not great, your image won't be great. Here's a great one right here. That's pretty excellent. And that's done AI in its natural form is all they put in for that. And I think AI recognizes AI. So there you go. See, we're still waiting for this guy to start. So what I'm going to do is pause the video until we are ready to show you the image. All right, here is our building. Now you notice, let me make sure that it's completely rendered. It is. It's a little bit blurry. We can always upres that in Photoshop if we really feel like we need to, but for this video I won't. It gets text wrong, so if this was supposed to say something like station, it's going to come out saying satin tie or whatever this says here, and detatius or whatever. I had some say some dirty words, which it does not do on purpose because it's not supposed to. That's one thing you can't do here, is enter anything adult in nature or anything like that. So what we're going to do is just get this guy. We're just going to save this off to my lovely dirty desktop here. There we go. There's 2 billion pictures on there right now, and we're just going to save that there. If you see anything that I don't want you to see, oh well, hopefully I'll catch it and blur it before I put this video out. Okay, so once that's done, basically we would jump back into Blender to create it. And here we are in Blender. I'm just going to open this up. For this, yet again, we need to make sure that we have in our preferences images as planes selected and enabled. And it helps if you spell it right. Images as planes, like so. It is selected there. It is installed. That's all you have to do. It comes with Blender. And then we're going to file import images as planes. And we're going to go find our image. This I stuck on the desktop. Remember, it was dirty. And we're going to find that image of that little town building right there. And we're going to go ahead and go into our material view and scale this dude up because it's way small. We don't want to make it inverted. So there we go, like that. Looks good. Just going to come from the front and move it up a bit. Going to get rid of that light for now. Or actually, you know what? I'm just going to move the light and the camera out of the way because we will want one later. Now, we are not going to bother with any of this sky stuff around the outside. It can go away when we get to that point. But this is real simple. I've done this before 2 other times for these videos. This one's kind of cool because it's using all the techniques plus the Midjourney technique. And we're just going to select that, go into edit mode, and then start slicing it up with our loop cut tool to the left there. And what we want to do is basically make a bunch of loop cuts like I'm doing here. You just click when it shows up, drag it off to the side. Do the same thing for the top. And see, it doesn't show up when you're in the middle, but it shows up when you get close to an edge. You just click and drag. And you click and drag to the bottom. You notice I'm avoiding all that outside. We'll eventually work some magic there, probably with the knife tool. But I'm going to go ahead and start making some cuts where some things are going to happen. And we're going to need those separations. And how do you know when? Well, anything that's going to jut out farther than anything else needs something to cut it and say that's what it's doing. So basically that's where we're at. I'm just going to go ahead and make that lip. I'm going to test something. And that happens a lot too. I'll say, hey, you know what? I have an idea. I'm going to use this technique here to see if I can do that. So I'm just going to cut out essentially these posts now. I'm just going to stay on the rough version of that post, not real detailed in there or anything. We just want to essentially, whoops, I did that wrong, separate it from the rest of the image, like so. And that's pretty close. Let's go ahead and add that porch lip right there at the bottom. That's going to need to be another piece that comes out. I'm going to wait probably on the windows because those can be happening just about any time after this. I'm going to wait on the sign for now too. Okay, so this is what we've got. I'm going to take our knife tool now and just get real kind of a little more detailed than normal on these. And I'm going to come in here and cut well, essentially a rough version of what I want to keep here, like that. We press the enter tool, or the enter key, to get that to take. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. This is not something I've covered in the other ones, but this is, like I said, a really rough shape that just is sort of encapsulating the area that we're wanting to keep. And that should do it. Don't worry about the plants or any of that stuff yet. This is really just to get the general shapes down. If we wanted to, you could go in here and tighten this up a little bit more, which, well, let's do a little bit more. And the reason why is I'm just going to come into these particular areas of the window. This will all get cleaned up, though. It seems like there's a whole lot of polygons going on here. There are. But this will get cleaned up, which is very cool. And you'll see how we do that very shortly. Okay. Perfect. Excellent. Now, there are some pieces that need to come out. We're not going to mess with these just yet, I don't think. That's the hardest part, is deciding what to cut now. Let's go ahead and cut them. Because I have this issue with the slants, though, there, I'm going to have to cut from here to here to ensure that I can actually make a loop cut now here. It's just the way that the system plays. So there we go. That's all good. I'm going to wait on the sign because I'm probably going to have to hand cut that out and then draw some lines, you know, some edges coming from that. Okay, let me show you what I'm doing now. Go back to object mode, back into our perspective view here. There's our image. Sorry, we need to be in edit mode. We're going to pull out anything that should be pulled forward. For starters, though, we're going to select all this stuff that's like the sky and everything in the background that we don't need, and just sort of get it out of our way. There's a couple different ways we can do that, but for the moment, I'm going to see if maybe I can get away with helping us create something that normally wouldn't be here. I'm just going to leave that like that for the moment. We're going to take this stuff and extrude it backwards, giving us sides to our building. Now we do have a little screwed up kind of visual thing going on here, and the way we take care of that, let me just move this back just a little farther, is we're going to have to be in object mode, have our object selected, go into our material properties and scroll down, and for some reason by default this always puts on alpha blend. Go to opaque and opaque, and now we should have no problem with this. It looks like it's in a box now, so we just need to go back into edit mode and delete these extraneous, my favorite word, polygons here. These, the ones that offend, the offending polygons. We can take those and just delete and say faces, and now we're left with this. Yet again, we can take these entire edge ones here that we started with. In fact, you can leave the ground ones for now, it's all right. But we're going to take these and get rid of those too. We can now delete them and just say faces delete. So we're left with this. The sides of the building we'll deal with later. We might not ever even see those, so I'm not going to really worry about those. Those can actually be painted in Photoshop or derived from another image. So just don't worry about those for now. Okay, here's the front of our building. What in the heck are we going to do with this? Well, let me tell you what. I'm going to see again here if I can pull off a couple of things. There's a few things that have to happen. Our pillars here, without a doubt, need to be pulled forward. So we're just going to select those guys like that. We're going to select these, and yes, of course, you can select them by marquee select. It makes it go much faster. Even Biz Marquee D. Select. All right, and then we go and export those guys forward, approximately the depth that they would be. Let's just say there. We're going to see. I'm probably not going to be able to do something here that I would like to do. I'm going to try it though. Select all these edges. I'm going to try and just pull these forward. It probably won't work. because I want that roof to be slanted. It may not work. Yeah, see, we have some issues with some stuff going on there. It might be because I messed up something here in the selection right there. Let's try this one more time with the select only and not the extrude tool by accident, and see. Okay, that does work. So there we go. We can pull those out to make like a little roof now, as you can see. That can always be repainted, reprojected, or whatever you want. This one here, let's go ahead and pull this guy out as far as we think it should be. And I'm noticing we didn't get that little edge. So easily enough, we can just come in here, throw that back on just like that. We can now select this whole front edge of this porch, and we can now extrude that forward to be longer than our pillars. There we go. Yet again, we can select all these bits at the bottom now, and we can play with those a little bit. I have an idea for those. But we are going to extrude those forward, essentially like so. Not bad. In fact, those can probably just move forward. All this here will get projected back on the top. You'll see how I do that in a second. So now we have a somewhat of a building here. Not bad. And something cool we can do with this, a few things. Obviously, we can fix up, areas that are missing, but we'll worry about that later. What I'm going to do is take these top polygons here and these front polygons here, and the side one. Is there a side one over here? There is, in fact. And all the bottom ones that really we don't need and don't have to be there. Make sure we only have that selected and it in edit mode. Here we're going to go separate selection, and that will separate it as a complete separate model that we can work on by itself. We can do the same thing with every piece of this building that we've got up here too, which we will wind up doing. And it allows us to really get in there and detail stuff. But my whole point of what I was doing was to separate some stuff and not have it be connected when we cut up the other parts of the building, because it would wind up getting in the way and affecting everything else. So with that, let's go ahead back into edit mode here, see what we can do. We have a window section here that consists of these two pieces. We have a window section that is just one piece. So for those, we're going to push those back in like that. That's just the general window. We have these sections that make up our door, and we're going to push those back in. Well, instead of pushing those in, why don't we pull the top of that one out. We're going to pull that, this, and this forward with our extrude. So what I mean is we're going to extrude those. Those seem to have come down at a slant. Not sure why that happened. We're going to lift that back up till we have a little ledge up there now, though. I am going to split now this piece and this piece off as separate pieces. I think I'm in fact going to do the same thing with the door, and we might as well just do that now and separate that by selection. Now when we go out into object mode, we select only those panels. We come back into edit mode. Anything we do to those will not affect the rest of the model. It's a really, really cool way to work. You will see what I mean as we go. So with that, let's go ahead and go around our window frames with some loop cuts. So you can see it only goes to that edge. This one, once again, only goes to the edges of that. This one only goes to its edges. And it looks like I have a little bit of an issue because that one was not separated out. However, let's try and fix that. We need to include this in our selection. That's the only problem I had there. So now once again, we just backed up, and now we'll do the separate by selection. And we'll go into object mode, make sure that's what we're selecting. We'll go back into edit mode. And now when we select, we can select everything. Now when I put my edge loops, they in fact go all the way across that window as they should. And we'll do another one up and down here, right to, okay, well that's not where it needed to be. It needed to be there. And now we'll do one more going all the way across like so. In fact, it can be crazy and go ahead and outline these little bars. See, you can get very, very detailed with it. Just go to the bottom of that one. We'll go to the top of that one. We'll go to the bottom and so on. It's very handy for quickly kind of whacking out a model from just an image. So I'm just going to select all these window panes now, and we can take those and just extrude those back a little bit like so. And now they have some depth to them like a real window should. We'll do the other window over here. It is also in this particular object, so we can edit it just the same. We've got a different setup here though, because it's got a little awning that's obviously flat and not good. So we're going to handle this a little bit of a different way. I'm going to make a separation there, one there. This one will have one here. And I'm thinking about how this is actually going to be done. Let's just go ahead and add another separation right under this, which we will move. And what I'm going to do is select these, or this polygon, and just pull that out to make our little awning. Then we could take that edge that was underneath here and pull that up to where it lines up back where that goes. You saw that image stretched? Yeah, we don't want that. But the way around that, if you're trying to move an edge without sliding the image, what we were doing there is sliding it back. But if we didn't want to slide it, we would hit G twice on the keyboard, and then we could slide the edge. It'll come up, and I'll show you what that's all about here. And then we can go ahead and throw in some more edges for these other parts. The little lip there, that lip there, and keep going until you get all of them selected. And at this part, all we have to do is think about cutting our windows out. That's what we're really trying to do. And once we have all those done, now if we want to make those a little more ridge there or something, we'd have to move those edges. I don't know that we need to, but just to show you an example, I just click those and double click G. I can move those edges over now and put them where I want to. You get the idea. All right, so now we'll select all the windows on this side. Their appropriate panes here. And we will extrude those backward into the shop there. And now we have those done. All from an image. Now you're noticing these textures are all stretched out and weird here. We will fix all that. I recommend having more images to use for that. but you can pull some of it off the same image if you like. This one's going to be hard because there's a lot of area that's not really flat or open, or a large expanse of it. So we'll see what can be done about it. All right, and now for this door, it's pretty much the same thing. We select those particular panels like that, and then we just start separating stuff out. Obviously, we're going to separate the window frame here. I don't know why it looks like there's some type of stereo unit or something up in the top window. That would be kind of inappropriate for the time period, but it's funny. Just make sure that stays behind the glass, however we're going to manage that. And now what I want to do before I move on is take these two pieces of glass, these two panes, and extrude those back before I separate anything. You must do that, otherwise you'll wind up unable to push that glass back and keep it only as thin as the polygon. It's just the way it works, folks. And now if you wanted to separate those out, you could. Also, you could separate the door as its own piece, but it's not necessary. It's just going to minimize your polygon count if you need to, or keep the busyness of all the edges and lines down, which can definitely be an issue depending upon what you're trying to achieve. You might want to keep that polygon count much lower, or your scene way less busy, just so you can see what you're doing. So I'm just going through here and marking out all the little frames for all these little windows in the door. Once again, a lot of this will be uncluttered shortly once I get the window pushed back. Now, I probably should have pushed that glass back first before I did all this. Could have saved myself all of these marks on the door there. It's kind of what this particular study was going to be about, but I kind of went ahead and did it anyway. It's all right, though. All right, so once these here at the top are done, I can select these guys. You'll see what I mean. Select these panes. And now that they're already pushed back, I can actually come in here and separate these by selection, and you see what happens. Go back into our object mode, make sure we only have the door selected. Back into edit mode, we can do the same thing once we push back these guys. So here, I think these ones, including this, are going to get pulled forward because I think that's some type of a curtain or a drape hanging in front of the window. These all get pushed back now. These panes, they look a little off, but that's okay. It'll look fine in the end. Push those back in there like so. In fact, you can go, if you want to, and get real tedious and technical and push these back a little bit farther, which I probably should have done the whole thing first. And this is kind of how you learn. Every one of these, though, I've done has been different, has their own little characteristic that I go through my shoulda, coulda, woulda scenario on. But for the most part, it's this same technique. Now, I'm not going to extrude those. I'm going to just move them back. They've already been extruded. This is just going to, whoops, perhaps I'm wrong. These are going to get extruded back. And nope, because that's going to leave an issue. So what'll have to happen is my door will wind up coming forward, which I planned on anyway, so that all works out. In the end, let's just hope I'm right about that, and not saying that just because I don't want to look like a moron. All right, here goes. Grab the rest of these. Perfect. And then we're going to extrude those forward. That way it recesses our bars a little bit. And then I'm going to try and take these pieces that have already been extruded once and just pull those forward. Get a little more depth on that. Perfect. And this being a separated piece, or at least it should be, we would add all the rest of the details in there. Not necessary to do so right now though, but you get the idea. That's fully 3D now. The only thing we haven't done is the sign and the edge of the roof. So with the building once again selected, and we go back into edit mode, you can see I do have an edge right there. So what I will do now, keeping these polygons flat is fine because that's what I would have done. We're going to pull them forward. We're not going to extrude them though. These will just get pulled so we have a nice slant to the roof there. And that works pretty good. We can even come in and cut these out and make them lean back if you want to get that detailed with it. It's relatively simple though. We just pull up an edge right here and try to do the same thing. They are in the image though, kind of slanted outwards, so these are going to be a little bit difficult to do that with, at least accurately. I'm going to do a little version of it at least, as close as I can get given how that image has been created. So not all images work for that reason in particular. So we'll just kind of do it that way for now. And if we wanted to, you could, let's say, pick these particular polygons here that are not part of that ledge. If I'm hopefully doing this right. You get the idea. And we're going to extrude those in just a little bit. And then I'm going to take their top edges and push them way back in there. If that makes sense. So they'll have kind of an angle to them. So just this edge on each one of these. Hopefully that's correct. We're just going to move those back to create a recess, basically like so. Make that more correct, you know. The sign you can either recreate and put on there, or we could go ahead and try and cut it out and pop it on, or pop it out, I should say. So with this same principle, I'm just going to kind of crudely cut it out with the knife tool. It's not going to be perfect, I warn you already. This is just an example of how this could be done. Press enter to finalize that, and then we could take all of the polys that make up that sign, not the edges, all of the polygons that make up that sign, like so. Not the roof, just these. And then we can extrude that forward. You can even get more detail and just extrude the outside of it and so on, but I think for the purposes of this tutorial, this will be just fine. We're going to make sure we do not include that guy because that is not part of the deal. And we pull the sign forward and we have that like so. If you don't like that gap under there, you can just grab those edges and pull that down, but for the purposes of this video, ta-da, done. Okay, so there's a basic model. We've got the door and all kinds of stuff going on there now. I recommend coming into our material and turning up the roughness on this because we're eventually going to make those windows nice and shiny. A really easy way to do that in edit mode for the actual windows themselves here. These will be possibly a separate material, or should have been. Let's go do that real quick because these need to be a separate object. I'm going to select all these windows, and I'll show you why they need to be a separate object here in 2 seconds. But those now are going to be separated by selection. They're their own object. back in object mode here. We're going to select these windows and making sure that's what I'm selecting. And we have to go in and separate their glass now as well. These you kind of have to select mostly by one at a time because you can't just drag across. Those are separate ones, so those will have to be taken care of off of the door section, but you want to make sure all these are selected, and then you go through and separate these by selection. Back into object mode again, we're going to select that. Those have already been separated. So now we're going to select those, and these. And in our material tab, you're going to notice we just have the one material. If we affect this material, we affect the entire building. So we're going to go into shading here. We're going to select that and copy it. We're going to go over to our material tab again. And with the windows still selected, we're going to create a new material slot and a new material. We're going to call this glass or lass, whichever one works. But we'll probably call it glass. And over here in the tab where the material is, we're going to actually grab that principal BSDF and delete it. And then we're going to Control V to paste the other one back in here from the other, so it uses the same image. We're going to connect it. Now essentially this is the same texture as the original, but we can affect it separately on the windows from the building. We're going to select this other one because we have two texture slots now on those windows. We're going to select the original and push this minus sign to delete it. Now we only have the glass version, which is exactly the same right now as the original. But when we do something cool here, you'll see a difference. We're going to scroll down, take the specular, turn it way high. And we're going to go down to the roughness and turn it way low or all the way off. And when we move around, the windows in the door now you see have shininess to them. The windows here probably don't yet, now that I think about it, because we did not paste that into here. What we're going to do is we're going to swap right here to glass. There we go, done. And now these ones here, we also want to just drop down and swap to glass. I totally forgot about that. So now we have shiny reflective glass in all of our windows of that building. And remember, this all started from an image. So another thing I'm not liking is the way these pillars have big old walls on the sides. Now this is a little advanced. Yeah, let's go ahead and see what we can do about that. So back in layout, here is our building. We're going to want to make an opening in these pillars, I think. This is going to be a whole nother technique, but just select it, we go into edit mode, and you can see here how that is set up. We're going to take our loop cut tool, and I think we're just going to cut right there, and that should be good. We're going to do the same thing approximately in the same place on each one, to where they have kind of a square shape. They're as deep as they are wide, and that should take care of things. That looks like that one's a little off. I'm going to see if I can make that better. That one looked a little deeper than it needed to be. If you make that mistake, you can always go back and alt select that loop, press delete, and dissolve it. Just do not delete them, dissolve them, and it'll take that back off. Okay, so now we're going to have to do a little bit of polygon building here, and that's real simple by selecting our polygon mode there and selecting all these guys you don't want to exist anymore on both sides here. And we're just going to press delete faces. Pow. We've lost this whole section, and we have to somehow put that back. And that's relatively easy since all of our polygons line up front to back. We're basically going to select edges. We're going to go here and press F, and press here and here, press F, here and here, press F. And you're basically just rebuilding the polygons right back into the image. It's going to use the texture that's projected from the front to do this. So if it looks like there's another pillar happening there, well, there is. We're going to go from here to here, press F. Now we have an issue with this window because it is a separate object from the wall. So we can't select this edge and this edge because this one will not select right here. So the easiest way to manage this, you can see this is our Y axis, is we're going to select that edge. We're going to select EY, which means extrude in the Y direction, and just pull that over and click it. And now we'll move that edge back to hide it behind that other section. Adjust it as necessary. And no one ever has to know what you covered up right there. It's a little off, but so's the whole building, folks. So's the whole building. All right. Now in the top, once again, we can do the same thing. We'll select this edge and this edge, probably this edge, and we'll just say fill. And Phil comes over and says, "What? Why are you talking to me like that?" Okay, and we have that done. For the back side of the pillar, this is going to be just kind of an issue. Just going to do that. No one will ever see it. You can also lift this up if you feel like you really, really need to. Actually, I selected the wrong one. This edge, you can lift up and hide that. You can select these like so and go F and this one and this one. If you really feel like you need to fill out the backs of these, like if we're going to see somebody walking through there, or the camera's going to sweep around and get a nice epic shot of, you know, your cowboy dude or whatever walking into this bank to rob it or something, you might see that. That's a very strong possibility. And there's how you take care of the sides of that pillar. Now, if you wanted to also, and you would just do that to the rest of them, same way. For the moment, I'm just going to go ahead and not build them in, but I'm going to hack out these extra polygons that would normally be removed, just to kind of give a little example of how it could be in the end. Of course, without it being filled in, but which may or may not look uglier than it could if they weren't. Are you getting tired of hearing the sound of my voice yet? That was for everybody listening to me. So there we go. And we would do the same thing to fill those back in and complete the surface. I may complete the visible faces just so at the end of this they look decent, but not the ones that are behind the pillars. There's kind of no point to that right now. But you can see that these will not match if I go over to from here to here, because they are separate objects. They could be brought back into the same place, however, but for now they are separate. And so that is like so. We can always repair this by going into the UV once again, like we did in the other videos, and adjusting its shape and so forth in the UV itself. But just to give you kind of an idea of what we're dealing with here, we can just grab our light here and pull it up and over maybe, and out a little bit probably, and really crank that sucker up. You know, we can make it a sun of only one power of a sun, and you can kind of start to get an idea of how that could work in your little western town. All from an image, and not only all from an image, but an image generated by AI, nonetheless. Once again, you can come in here with these pillars, separate them out as separate objects, and shape these much better than they are. In fact, we can do one of these, kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Go into edit mode, select all the polygons for this particular object. It's one of the reasons why I didn't want to do the back yet. That's what I'm going to tell myself. And we can take that particular one and separate by selection. I'm just right-clicking to do that. And now when we're selecting that as its own object, go back into edit mode. We can come in here and throw some loop cuts in there with our loop cut tool. And we can really tell it how to be. So if we just want to scale these in, but see, you can't do them like that. You got to go GG, and then you can slide. So I'm not sure, as far as scaling, we're going to have an issue because this is actually going to move the projection a little bit possibly, but we'll see. But you can come in here and reshape all this stuff. We could have scaled, but you see how it's squishing that? GG just lets you slide. I need to be able to move these. But I can also come in here and reproject texture onto them to get that to be back where it needs to go. And it's only going to move that up to that next line though. So, I mean, it's not good, but it's also savable. I could have thrown in another edge in there, just kind of like a stop. But you get the idea. You know, you can shape those and reproject the texture on them however you want. To fix all this, you just go into your UV editor and select those particular, let's see, for these here, select those particular polygons that you want to project onto. What am I doing here? There we go. Selecting all these and this one. The fronts I'm not so much worried about, even though they're not great. But what you can do is take this piece that's really stretched. We're just going to go here to UV and go cube projection on it. And now all of these, if we want them to have a particular texture, we just squish and move the UVs over here. I can select all of them, and we can squish those down. We can move them to where they're over just the brown area here. And even though that's completely stretched out and so forth, it's not stretched out like it was. But you can also put this over any one of these other types of surfaces. So like if I were to take these and say, you know what, I want that to kind of look more planked, you can take this, move it, say here, and now squish it. Well, stretch it this way and squish it this way, and maybe get a more of a planked vibe. But I think you see what I'm getting at. I've also tweaked it a little bit, but you get the idea. That is the whole way this is done. And all from an AI generated image. Like I said, it's not perfect because I did not honestly finish the object itself, but this was about showing you how to do it. And see, the same thing, you select those faces, you go to your UV and you cube project it. Obviously it's got the whole building on it now because that's what it has over here. And we're just going to take that and squish that down to be whatever surface that needs to be. It's a lot better if you have larger expanses in your image to use for stuff like that, but you can always just take it into something like Substance Painter or bring in a different image specifically for that. And now you have that surface on that area. So getting back to closing up these gaps on this building, we can take all of our objects now if we want. Let's just say we do. And I'm going to take all of those and I'm going to join them. I believe we'll make that work. It does not screw up any of my materials, which is nice. Do have a strange edge going on there. Jump back into edit mode, and now we can take some of these edges, like, let me make sure I am selecting the edge, like so, up to there, up to there. In fact, we could probably go here, maybe even here. And we're going to select the other ones on the other side now. Make sure they go all the way down as well. And now we can just say F, and that F's it up. Okay, we didn't want to do that after all, but I will do an easier version of this. And this is because the door has broken that up so much it doesn't just coincide and come across that nicely. So I'm going to try and get rid of these selections I made here. Let me just reselect this side, including those. And now we're just going to extrude along the Y, EY, move that over to hide that gap instead of truly close it. We're just hiding it. And we're going to do the same thing from the other side real quick, making sure we're only grabbing the forward edges, the outside edges here. Now, unfortunately, we've grabbed a whole bunch of stuff we don't want. So we're just going to go ahead and remove that. Just select these. Perhaps I can do this without the edges. Yep. And that looks good. We're going to grab these, and these. And that, unfortunately, also selected things we didn't want, so I'm going to have to manually select that. And then once again, we will Y, keyboard shortcut to extrude in the Y, pull that across. We will have to replace this, but it looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and select these three now, push F, make a polygon for that, which we would also go back and do a new piece for. So there you have it. There's our little Western building made from an AI image. Let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, send beer or whatever's legal, whatever you can do. Just kidding. Let me know what you think. Let's go ahead and pop this up a couple more bits of brightness here, probably maybe even to 2. Pow, look, it's a sunny day. You can do whatever you want to this little building. Make more, however you feel like doing it. All right, cool. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a good one.